Everyone, welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Natasha Denona marathon, where I am doing a look with each Natasha Denona palette that I have, and I have a total of 12 palettes. Today's palette is I Need a Nude palette. Today I wanted to kind of keep it subtle, not too colorful, and so I chose this palette. And the topic for today is, what's my story? Everyone has a story. You have a story that you made about yourself, and then other people might have stories about you. So today's story is how I basically have summarized my life in my head. I'm gonna start from when I was a little baby to now a grown person that's 41 years old. I feel like this look is gonna be pretty quick, so I should kind of really summarize my life story for you guys, because it's gonna be just really quick and easy to create a look with this palette. This palette is really good for creating your everyday looks. So I'm gonna start off with this shade called Vague right here. And I'm gonna apply it in the inner part of my eye, on my brow bone. So, oh, not Vague, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong place. It's called Fair, which makes more sense because it's the lightest shade in this palette. So I was born in Punjab, India. Punjab is a state in India in 1984. And 1984 was a very tumultuous time in Punjab at that time. In my community, people with my religion, which is called Sikhism, there was basically genocide happening at that time by the Indian government. There are many different estimates of how many Sikhs died. Some estimates are like over 10,000. The reason why I always remember this and associate this with my birth also is because when I was little, there was the cutest picture of my brother and my parents. At that time in India, it's not like people didn't really own cameras in their home. So you went to like a studio to get pictures taken, and it was such a cute picture of my parents all dressed up with my cute little brother, who was actually my older brother. And I was like, where's my picture of when I was a baby? And then the story that my parents told me was, well, you know, the times were really tough at that time. There were curfews, like it was just a very chaotic time. So that's why they never made it to the studio, which is totally understandable. So India was such a cool place to have a childhood. It was so adventurous, and it feels like a dream now, but we lived in so many different places. When I was a little kid, we lived in this huge house that had so many stairs. Like, it wasn't our house, it was actually like a big apartment building that looked like a castle. Especially like me being a little kid, it looked like a castle to me. But there were like, it was kind of creepy. There were like all these stairs, and sometimes you'll have like apartments in the middle of the stairs. Like, these apartments wouldn't really have like a lot of light because they were like really in an awkward place in the middle of the stairs. So it was just a really, really creepy place because we would make up stories about this older woman that lived there, and we're like, oh my gosh, she's actually a witch. You gotta be careful. And now, like, it sounds so mean. But as kids, you know, your imagination kind of goes wild. And that's what we did. And this shade looks really peach, which makes no sense. So I think my brush might be a little contaminated because it does not look peach at all in the palette. I wanted to clean my brushes this weekend, and I still have not cleaned them. It's just been really busy because I've been getting all my chores done before starting my new job, and yeah, cleaning my brushes was not at the top of my chores. I have next weekend too. Next weekend the kids are going to be at their dad's house, so I'm going to have plenty of time to do stuff. So I have other chores that I can do next weekend. But yeah, so our first house was like this big apartment complex, very social because you know there were other people that we got to hang out with, and it was a joint family, so I lived with my cousins. It was just such a fun way to grow up where you lived with your cousins. So you never felt lonely. But the place was creepy. Everything was dark and creepy there. And then we ended up moving. You know, who knows what the story was. Maybe there was some family trauma. I have no idea. But we ended up leaving and then we moved into this neighborhood. And we kind of moved from one apartment to another in the same neighborhood. And I remember this one particular thing, which I think by that time I was under 7. I don't remember exactly what my age was. But I remember there were people that used to live near us and I was not allowed to play with them because they were poor. And it's so weird to kind of like think about that now. And it wasn't even just like they were poor. I think they were of a particular caste. And it was just kind of frowned upon for me to play with this girl. And I remember I was like sitting there eating something with her. And then I think I saw my mom and then I ran off because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be in trouble because I'm hanging out with her. And my parents were like such nice people. And looking back at that, it just kind of shows me how brainwashed people can become. Like we are so gullible as human beings with all the stupid things that we'll actually start believing in if we hear it enough times. Like it's pretty scary. And then my brother also got hit by we called it a scooter, but it was like a motorcycle, but you know, not as fast. I don't know what it's called in English, but we called it a scooter, and he broke his arm. So those were like the two interesting things that I remember from that place. And yeah, we had fun with the neighbors. Like as a child, I always had kids to play with. Like it was such a fun time. And then finally we bought our own house and then we moved to a new neighborhood. And in the new neighborhood, we bought like 3 plots of land, like 3 brothers. So my dad and his 2 older brothers, they bought plots, like land right next to each other. So we were the first one to go there and build like a small house. And then my uncle and his family also eventually moved there and built their house. And so again, I was with my cousins. So I'm very close with those cousins because I pretty much grew up with them. And then when I was 9 years old, we moved to America and they also followed us. I mean, not like followed us. We all applied to come here at the same time, so they were gonna come also. And so I just kind of grew up with a lot of cousins, and I'm so grateful that I've had that opportunity to grow up with family. Okay, now I'm gonna go into this shade called Wit. But in India, we used to ride our bicycles to school, and it was far. And it was such an adventure. Like we would sometimes like cross over railroad tracks on our bicycles. And I think my parents didn't know that. And once my mom found out, she was horrified. She's like, what? And then on the way back from school, we would like start ringing doorbells for fun, people's homes. And our school was huge. It was like very open. It wasn't like the schools here where they're like all like enclosed buildings. The schools were like on a huge plot of land, only 2 stories, but 2-story kind of like really spread out. And we had a huge like ground to play on, like just fun everywhere. So we would come home from school and instantly we would go and play with the neighborhood kids. And then our mom would basically then call us for dinner and I guess to do homework and stuff. But like here in America, you have to worry so much about, oh my God, I gotta take my kids to activities, I gotta do that, gotta keep them occupied. But growing up in India, we were just always having fun with other kids, having adventures, playing, and I think my life as a child growing up in India was so much fun, and I'm so grateful that I got to do that before coming here to America. And then I'm really grateful that we actually ended up coming here. But when we came here, looking back at everything, I do see that my personality kind of changed a little bit, because in India I was very, very social. I had a group of like girlfriends, and like we had our little cliques too as a 9-year-old. And I used to tell them stories. But once I came here, I think because I didn't know English, it was just such a shock to be in this new place where I couldn't communicate. That kind of turned me into a little bit of a shy person. So for a couple of years I struggled because it was a language issue. I took ESL classes. We moved to Queens when we first moved here, but it was fun. It was a nice adventure to pack up your bags and go to this place called America. It was a very exciting time. So the peaches in this palette are a little bit more like toned down. They're not super bright peaches. So just wanted to point that out, which I think goes well with the theme of this palette. Is very like kind of subtle, toned down. It looks nice. So it wasn't until I would say junior high when I started to become a social butterfly again. And my friends would call me all the time to get homework help. But at that time, I started to see, like my dad becoming more strict. And I think my parents had a lot of anxiety about me being a girl and being in America. But that's what I think. I could be wrong. And so at that time, friendships started to be frowned upon. And, I had to tell my friends, don't call me. And that sort of upbringing during my preteen, early teen years, it just kind of then shifted my personality again, and I became a very quiet person. So I think it's like naturally I am a very social person, but under stress, under some sort of new place, my natural tendency is to kind of like shut down and become quiet. So after kind of being like told, friendships are not good, and being kind of criticized for friends calling home all the time, in high school, I basically turned into a very quiet person. And it was also a new place. So that's kind of like my tendency growing up. Whenever I would go to a new place, I would just kind of become quiet. And high school was so big. It was in a different town. I took the train to go to my high school. So it was huge, it was overwhelming, and I just turned into a very quiet person. And I distinctly remember my high school graduation where people were like, oh, this was the best experience of my life. We did this, we did that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I remember feeling a bit of like sadness, and I was like, that wasn't my experience. It was pretty like boring and like very like plain and boring. But I did really well in high school academically. I took a lot of AP courses, and then I ended up in college, where also I commuted to college. Let me see. Now I'm gonna go in with this shade called Vague. And I wanted to stay in school, like at a dorm, not for like independence, not for like parties or anything, just because I wanted that full academic experience. I wanted to spend all day at the library studying, but my parents, they were really scared to do that. So I had to commute like an hour and a half almost for college every day to go to my classes. And yeah, I was pretty upset about that. I really wanted to experience and have that full-on academic experience. I loved school and I loved learning. So even now I feel like, you know, I can feel the sort of that I missed out on something that I really wanted to experience. But, you know, after living life for 41 years, you kind of start to accept the fact that in life you actually don't get everything you want. And the sooner you can be okay with accepting that reality, the sooner you will become a more satisfied and happy person. These shades are so smooth, not patchy at all. They're like, you put the brush here and it's just like perfect. It's pigmented, no patchiness, looks really nice. College was again also pretty quiet. The friends that I had were commuters because there was something called the commuter lounge and that's where all the commuters hung out. So those are the people that kind of became my friends in college. I did a degree in economics and math, and yeah, then I got my first job. And right after I graduated, I remember my dad being very much like, oh, she has to get married, she has to get married. He was so stressed. So I definitely grew up with an environment, I feel like, where my parents were just very anxious. Like, and I didn't realize that growing up. Looking back at it, I realize, oh my God, they were so anxious about everything. I think I want to create a little bit more depth. So I'm going to take silhouette right here. Because I used to take the train to go to school. And sometimes I would be like 10 minutes late. Like, there's gonna be delays in the train and they would be so worried when I would go home. And I, being a kid, not understanding that, I would think, oh my God, I did something wrong. Like, that's kind of like the feeling I got. Like, I was being reprimanded for coming home late. But they were just worried. So it was definitely hard growing up as an Indian kid in America because of cultural differences. You know, you're getting these values, American values, from school, but your parents kind of like really trying to hold on to the Indian values. So there was definitely some clashes growing up as an immigrant. So a couple of years later, I got married. So I got married at 24. And in the beginning, it was really good. I was so happy and so in love. But once my ex came to America, you know, like, I don't want to talk too much about his life and stuff for his own privacy, but I just remember him becoming instantly depressed because he couldn't find a job. And, you know, people in India, they have this idea that America is just this amazing place and things are just going to be so great. And then when you come here and you realize, oh man, this is hard. This is not what I thought. So pretty quickly, things kind of went south and I didn't realize that they were going south. You know, I think I was kind of in denial pretty much for a majority of the marriage. And on top of that, you know, I didn't think divorce was an option. Like, what else was I gonna do? If the relationship wasn't what I wanted, like, it was not what I deserved, like, I didn't really think I had any other option. So I stuck around for 13 years of my life. And I was miserable, pretty much most of it. So looking back at it, it's definitely very embarrassing and it's shocking to me that why would I treat myself like this? It's actually pretty disheartening. Like, how did I grow up in such a way where I did not give myself enough value to be like, who cares what anybody thinks? Who cares if society or culture or like, I mean, I think mainly I always thought about my parents, and I thought they were gonna like disown me or something if I were to get divorced, because it was such a like, oh no, we don't do that in our culture. And growing up in America, it was always this Indian culture versus American culture thing. Anything American was considered bad. So I was just kind of stuck in that child mentality that my parents would like disown me or something. And when I finally told them, they were like so supportive. And it's just so weird how we get stuck in our child self. And sometimes we don't even recognize that, you know, your parents are also people, and people change. Like, it's 15 to 20 years later. Like, you can't think that, you know, your parents are going to be the same exact way that they were when you were growing up. On top of that, the pressures of raising children and teenagers, it's going to bring out a different personality in the same people versus when they're older and their children are adults and grown. While I was married, I really struggled. I just always felt unhappy. There were kind of like moments where I did feel happiness because I would watch a lot of self-development videos, and so I tried to be happy. This shade is a little bit hard to blend, and darker shades always have this sort of issue. I had a lot of brain fog, I was lonely, and you know, maybe I'll talk about this more of how I was while being married and what kind of person I am now being single. And there is night and day difference between who I was when I was married, how I felt when I was married, versus the kind of person I am now and how my life is now and who I am now. It's completely different. And I feel like I'm finally starting to slowly find myself. And I completely lost myself while being married. So I'm really grateful and very happy to be divorced. Like, there's so much kind of stigma and negative connotation with that word, but it was my freedom wand. Or like some sort of magic wand to bring me closer to who I am and to give me wings and to be myself. And I am very happy now. Yeah, this shade is a little bit patchy and it's a little bit harder to work with compared to the other shades. It's very hard to find dark shades that are easy to work with. I'm just kind of softening out the edge on this side with the peach shade. Time for some shimmers. There's a lot of cool tone brown shimmers like all over this palette. Like, they all look the same to me. Okay, so I got up to show you guys, and as you can see, they're just very, very similar to each other. This one's a little bit darker, but yeah. So I think I'm gonna take the darkest shade, which is called Filigree, which is right here. I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna start with that and put that in like the outer part and kind of meet with the matte. So, you know, there's like a nice transition. Delilah is on the opposite side right here. And I'm gonna take Delilah, which on the lid, it looks just like Filigree. Travertine, which was in the corner right here, which is a little bit lighter. Whisper right here. And put that in the inner part. Now I went in with this shade called Muse. That's a very reflective shade. Right here in the center. Oh my god. I hit the side of my chair and all of these shades popped out. Okay, everything is fine, it's back in its place. Yeah, so at this point in my story, I feel like life is kind of starting over and it's new beginnings for me, and I'm really excited. For some time, I kind of felt this pressure. I'm like, oh my God, now I actually have choices. What do I want my life to be like? And it was kind of like stressing me out a little bit, but I got over that. Now just kind of like, I'm just letting it flow and unfold itself. You know, sometimes it can be too much pressure to be like, I'm starting life over. Now everything is in my control. I better make the right decisions and create the life I want. That's one version of life. And then the other one is like, let me just kind of listen to myself, move forward, and let's see how life unfolds itself. That feels less stressful and more adventurous and more exciting than being like, I'm gonna create the life I want. Like, when you say you're gonna create the life you want, like, you basically are telling yourself that everything is under your control, but that's not how life is. And there's a part of you, I feel like, when you are telling yourself everything has to be under my control to create the life I want, then that is, you have unrealistic expectations for yourself, and that causes stress. So I'm going to take the shade Vague in the lower lash line. I'm going to put it in the most of my lower lash line, but in the corner, I'm going to bring that dark, cool tone brown from the outer part of my eye. So I'm going to do the same on the other eye, put some eyeliner, mascara, and clean up with concealer if I need to. And then we're going to figure out what to do with my blush and my lips and finalize this look. Back, I finished up the look. Here is what it looks like, and I love it. I especially love that one shade that I used in like the inner half of my eye. It is so reflective. It almost feels like a foil shade. So when you pack it on more and layer it on top of itself, then it becomes even more reflective. So that shade is this one in the middle called Muse. So that's probably my favorite shade in this palette. It's so beautiful and reflective. I also like put it in the inner corner here on the inner part of the eye, and it is shiny. So to finish up the look, I grabbed this Dior blush. This is the shade Rosy. Oh, no, Coral. Now, someone had said that these blushes are a little dry, and at that time I was like, oh, no, they're not. But I think they might be a little dry. But we'll see how I feel today. I'm going to apply it. I mean, by this time, that whole Dior engraving or whatever you call it is completely gone. So like these Dior blushes look so pretty when you don't use them. So then what's the point? Like, it's like that shiny object, you know, it looks so pretty, you get it, but then it's gone. It's very bright. Like, it is not a subtle peach, it's like a really, really light peach color. Nice and bright. It is a little bit different from the peach that's on my eye though. You know, the peach in my eye, I feel like has a little bit pink in it and it's more toned down, whereas this is kind of orange. Next time I will not use this blush with I Need a Nude palette. It's a very different peach or coral or orange. It looks like a light orange. I mean, it applied okay. It's not like the most amazing blush formula. Like, I tend to like blushes that have a satin feel and they melt into your skin. This is not bad. It's like a matte blush, but not my favorite. Like the YSL ones, the new ones, they're pretty nice. I like the Dolce & Gabbana ones too. And then, you know, any sort of liquid blush, I feel like those work out well because they really blend into your skin or melt into your skin. But there's nothing wrong with it either. It doesn't look super dry. I feel like it's okay. It's a good matte blush, not satin. But not the color I needed. Maybe I should go over it. But let me do my lipstick first and then kind of figure out if I need to change up the blush. For the lipstick, I pulled up this Smashbox. No one talks about these lipsticks, but they're my favorite. They have like really nice colors. The formula is comfortable. It says they're a legendary prime and plush lipstick. And the shade is called First Time. And it's made in Canada. Yeah, this works with I Need a Nude. This is like peach. It's not orange. Like there's orange and pink mixed. I really like it. Very bright too. Yeah, so the orange blush is not working. I have this wonderful blush palette from Sigma. There's like 6 different blushes in here. Maybe I can cover it up with one of these. Oh wow, that's pigmented. That's a lot of pigment. Oh my goodness. You know, I've never tried a white powder. This is from Laura Mercier. I've never used this. Invisible loose setting powder. I'm so scared to use this. Like, am I gonna look white? Oh wow, it's so fine. It reminds me of powdered sugar. All right, let's try this. And but the blush is still a little too much. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm literally hitting everything next to me. I love this part. The only reason why I spray the setting spray is so that I can do this fan afterwards. All right, here is the finished look. I feel like a Bollywood actress with the hair flying. I used to watch a lot of Bollywood movies. It was like the thing with your hair flying with a wind. Very glamorous. All right, so I'm all done. My face is all made up. It's a nice look. It's a pretty typical like peachy, pinky peach look. It's very basic, very like everyday friendly, I would say. Actually, it looks pretty glam. It's not that, because I used a lot of shimmers, and because the blush is so pigmented and the lip shade is also pretty pigmented as well, I feel like you could actually, it's looking more glam than everyday. If I had stuck to more of the matte shades and a lighter lipstick and a more subtle blush, maybe then it would look more everyday. So I started out trying to do an everyday look and it turned into glam. It happens. So today's topic was my life story. I think a lot of it for me had to do with just being from an immigrant family and some cultural differences and just that transition from moving from one country to another. I would love to know about you guys. Are you from an immigrant family? Have you moved from one country to another? And what has that experience been like for you? Did you grow up in another country and then moved over to another country as an adult? Or did you move when you were a child and then you grew up in another country? Or your whole life has been like born here, grew up here, kind of very stable life. But I am very grateful for the life I've had. I I'm really grateful I got to spend my childhood in India because it was so much fun. But at the same time, I'm very grateful to have moved to America because there's just so many opportunities here, and I feel like there's more freedom here, freedom of expression. And I am a very artistic person, and sometimes with Indian culture, I feel very constricted. And so I am grateful that I moved into another country with different culture that allows for more individuality, more expression. I know we have our issues here in America as well, which I was very surprised by, because as a child, and especially after going through that period in India where, you know, the Indian government was killing its own people, our community, it's, you know, you have this image that America is just going to be perfect, that everything is perfect. But having spent most of my life here, there are a lot of issues here too that can be improved. So that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification. Thank you. Bye.